Hello there, it's Jan at JB Crafts. Thank you for joining me on the channel. I am back with another project for my Halloween series, and if you've been following me through this, I did say at the beginning that I was going to include some designs this year that were maybe using Halloween things, but in a different way. So I'm very much a person that if I'm buying something, I like to have more than one use for it. So yeah, we actually did a couple of times ago, we did the pink ghost with the Happy Boo Day card. We did pink pumpkins at the beginning. So yeah, just sort of having a look at what you've got. And some things I agree are, ghosts and spiders and things like that are pretty much Halloween time of year. Pumpkins you could use for autumn, for harvest, for Thanksgiving, things like that. And today I've gone for what are essentially a set of witches' hats that I had with one of my Halloween dies. And I thought, let's just have a little bit of fun with it just by changing the colour and then putting an everyday sentiment on it. We've come up with something completely different. So it is a concept card today for you. I don't have one of these on the channel at the minute, so I thought we'd add this to the collection. I do have a playlist for all the concept cards. Concept being anything that's not just an ordinary book fold or a top fold, so it's got a different kind of fold. Some people call them fancy folds, but yeah, we've got something a little bit different today. So we've gone for the turquoise. I've got a combination of pattern paper, a little bit of embossing, using an embossing folder, and then these are all out of my scrap box. So I've got various ways of saving scraps. Some of them are in a larger, like an accordion folder. Some of the smaller pieces I just put in these little plastic wallets. So I've been through there and I chose some of my bits to cut the hats out, and I've got them done, ready, prepared. And this one is actually what's called a reverse easel card, and I'll explain why it's called that when we come to do the fold. But basically you just need something here to work as a stopper that will stop it from sliding back together. So if I show you this from the different angles, you can see we've got this bit is now holding, the focal point on the front is holding the card open, and you should have this sort of shape on the outside of the design there. So it is 5 3/4 squared because I wanted to cut mine from a piece of A4, and that's pretty much the largest we can get out of a piece of A4 here in the UK. If you wanted to make it 6 by 6, you could use a piece of 12-inch cardstock. The 5 3/4 fits in a 6-inch envelope really nicely. And as always, here we're in the UK, it has just started raining as I've started filming. So yeah, I apologise. As a lot of you know, I work in my conservatory. I can hear it on the roof now. I apologise if the camera, if the microphone is actually picking that up. I don't think it's due to last very long. I thought I was safe. It wasn't doing it when I actually started, but yeah, typical British weather, isn't it? So yeah, I'm going to show you how to make this one today. It folds flat apart from, whatever embellishments you've got on top, and this will fit in a standard 6 by 6 envelope. So yeah, opens up like so. I've just done some detail and a little cluster of images here and raised this one on foam pads so that it catches that main focal point there. And then on the back, you could write a message inside here if you wanted to, but I've actually put my piece here on the back, and I've left it blank. I didn't want to put a sentiment in here. I just wanted to leave space to write on if I was going to send that to somebody. So let's have a look how it's put together then. Really, really simple. It's exactly the same fold as if you were doing an easel card, but there is a piece of card less. So what I've done, I've cut my card down to 11.5 inches by 5 3/4, and then I've just used my corner punch to round off the corners. I wanted a nice soft sort of finish on this one. And what we're going to do is, this is actually the front side of my card, so I'm going to flip it over for the center fold, and that's going to be at 5 3/4. So that basically folds it in half. And the reason I've done it on the reverse is because I want to fold it with the nice, well, there's not really much to choose between the smooth cardstock. It is smooth on both sides, but what I call the nice side on the inside. Okay, so we're going to fold it in half to make our 5 3/4 square card. So let's just get that one burnished in place. I'll reinforce that with the bone folder shortly. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it onto the right side now and pop it back in here. And we want half of whatever your measurement is for your card. So half of mine is 2 7/8. So I just want to go on that line there. And I'm going to go down the vertical again. If you've made your 6 by 6, you would be scoring this at 3 inches. Okay, and then this one, so let me just, for the purpose of showing you what I mean, I'm going to score this on both sides. You don't need to do this. I just want to show you what I mean by the difference in the easel. So if we were going to make an easel card, we would fold this bit down and we'd end up with this kind of shape here. And then normally you put either another piece of card or a topper or whatever you want on here. And you get this kind of effect, this triangle on here. All we mean by reverse easel is that we're reversing that fold, which is why I did them on the other side. So all I'm going to do now is fold this one back to the original score line that we put in the middle. And you've almost got that Z. So we've actually made a Z fold. So the Z here. All right, there are lots of variations on the Z fold. You know, if you have a look on the playlist, there will be one of those in my concept card playlist. But yeah, you've got that Z and you can do things with that. All right, if you wanted to do it this way, you've got what's called an M fold. So you could have it this way and you could put your topper on the front. But what I'm going to do today, let's just reinforce that center fold with the bone folder there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have it this way, and the reverse bit is this piece folding backwards like so. So if I bring this one in again now, you can see where we've got that shaping. If I stand this up here and stand this one up, you can see we've got that. You should have the V at the top and then your main panel coming towards you. So you can see where we've got that shaping, and then we're going to put our topper on here, which is the bit that will eventually do the standing. So reverse easel just means we've reversed the fold in the opposite direction. So then we need to decorate. So we've got a few things ready to decorate. So I chose some pattern paper, which I'm going to put in the inside. And I've gone for a sort of turquoisey colour today. And I'm just going to pop this on the inside, and just to add a little bit of extra something, I've gone with some washi tape, which has just got a little silver dot on it. I am going to introduce a little bit of silver, and I do like to link everything together when I'm sort of card making and designing. So if I'm going to use sort of black on my card, I would incorporate some black. Sometimes it may just be the stamped sentiment that I've done in black. Sometimes it would be adding black gems. In this instance, I wanted to add some silver, and you'll see where I've put that in a second. So just by adding that little bit of washi, and apart from that, it was a new selection of washi that I'd picked up last time I was out in the craft shop. So that, yeah, we need to use some of those. We need to open it and give them some love. I have far too many rolls of washi tape. I don't know whether anybody else is addicted to it or not. I've got more than I could probably ever use, but then that goes for most of my craft supplies, I think. I've said to the kids, I says, when I'm done on this, when my time's done on this earth, I says, just open the conservatory doors, I says, and have a sale. I says, you know, if you don't want to keep any of it, because there is enough to keep somebody going for this lifetime and the next. So that's gone down onto that base there, and then we need to decorate the top here. So you could put another piece of pattern paper. The reason I didn't was I didn't have enough of this one. I've cut the 2 pieces that we've used here, and there wasn't enough to do 2 pieces for the 2 cards here. I nearly always make a sample card and then I remake it on video. That's just like how I like to work. I like to have this one to show you along the way that this is what I'm doing. This is this part of the card. This is going to be the next part. This is what it looks like. So yeah, just my choice that I end up with 2 of everything, but that's one way of getting through the stash. So I thought, right, let's have a think what we can do on this part. So what I decided is that to actually use some scrap of the smooth cardstock, and I've cut a panel to fit here. So this one will be 5.5, I think. Let me just double check that. If my card's 5 3/4, yeah, this one's 5.5, and it will be by 2 5/8 because the depth of this was 2 7/8. So I've just taken 1/4 of an inch off so that we've got that 1/8 of an inch border all the way round. And then I've used my ink. I sort of had a look through the little colour chart here for the Distress Oxide inks, which you all know are my favourite go-to inks. And I got out the sort of the turquoise ones, and I looked which ones sort of fit with the papers that I'd got. And I landed on the Salvage Patina. It's one of the favourites for a sort of a turquoisey colour. And then all I've done, just with my little brush here, is I've gone round the edge of this card with the Salvage Patina ink. I didn't want to cover the whole thing. I wanted the white in the middle so that when we put the topper on, it's going to stand away from it. And then I just went through my embossing folders and had a look what I'd got, and chose the studded leather one. I just wanted something sort of fairly generic, and we're going to pop this in here and just pass this through the Gemini. Now, apologies, if you follow me on a regular basis, you know that my Gemini sits behind me. So I do need to just pop off camera for a second. Let me just get that nice and straight. Yeah, just slid it in there. And I'm just going to run this through the machine. So let me just pop, I need my base plate. And let's have a little look. Because this is a 3D folder, for the Gemini, I need a base plate. I use my magnetic mat, and then I use my other shim for the top. So I'm going to pass that through now, and let's just get that embossed. You can hear the machine behind me there. And then when we take that one out of its folder, it's got that gorgeous sort of quilting effect on there. Now, you can use this both ways. You can have the raised side of it there. You can see where this is actually, you know, sort of almost like a chain mail. But I wanted these little pieces, like the cushion part of it, to be the raised side of it. And then we're going to pop this simply on here. So again, I've used my all-purpose glue now that I've got my supplies sorted. This is my go-to glue for sticking cardstock or paper to cardstock. And I have talked about this in other videos as to why that's the choice. With it being a solvent base, it doesn't wrinkle anything, and it dries so kind of rigid that it strengthens the projects. It's a particularly good one for construction if you're making boxes or things like that. And I like the wet glue because it gives you time to sort of get everything in the right place. I do use tape. I've got some tape coming up because I found a box full of it. I've never really used a lot of double-sided tape, but I found a box full in the cupboard, and I thought, you know what, we need to work our way through it. So that's my panel on there, and you can see that matches the pattern paper beautifully on there. So that's essentially the card itself. And then we now need to think about the toppers. So let's just bring in some of the dies that I've used. So I have got a really old set of Spellbinder dies, and I think these are called Lacy Squares. And I've had these absolutely ages, but I still go back to them. They're still a really nice sort of generic style. And what I've done is I've cut 2 of these out of some turquoise cardstock. So this is just a linen texture, but that is my preferred for the solid cards. And I've cut 2 of these, and I want to put one on the base of the card, and then at one of them I've turned into my topper. So you can see the blue lacy square there. And then I have used a plain square to cut my white layer. And this is just a scrap of the same cardstock that we made the card from, the smooth wide cardstock. And then because my square dies went up in too large an increment, the next one was too big for what I wanted to do. I've just cut the silver layer freehand. And I did say that the silver was going to come in and feature. You can just see there we've got some nice silver mirror card. And all I've done is cut this one just with the guillotine. So the one that I die cut was 2.5 inches square. And then I've just gone up 1/8 of an inch to 2 5/8. I just wanted a nice little skinny silver border just to offset it. We said we were going to bring some silver into this. And in the same box as what I'd used on the main card was this little one that's just got the word love written on it. Now I put that on there, but when you actually look at the finished sample, you can't see that much of it. So again, it's optional as to whether you want to add anything there. And then these are my hats. So these are what I'd got in my stash. There's 3 different styles, and all I've done is cut those out of some patterned paper. So turquoise cardstock again. We've got this one here. I've got the little one I've done in some floral print, and then the larger one is a piece. I think this is a scrap. I think these are both scraps of Tim Holtz paper. This one was just a remnant that I'd got. I think it's from an old paper pad. It was this particular pattern. So I thought, yeah, it's got that lovely turquoise in it. I tried to avoid the pink. I didn't really want to introduce another colour. I do like working sort of in monochrome with a kind of neutral balance, so they're bringing the silver in. So if I'm working with cool tones, it's often the silver. If I'm working with warm tones, I often bring the gold in as the sort of complementary colour. So those are my little hats, and I've got some foam pads on the back of those ready. So we've got all those bits and pieces, and then I've die cut some extra pieces of foliage, just using a selection of dies from my stash, whatever I'd got sort of lying around. So what we're going to do is this one is going to go right in the centre of here. And I did say that we'd got some tape on some of these, as I say, trying to use up some of the stash. And this is what I've been encouraging you guys to do, you know, sort of delve in there. We've all got stash. Delve in there and see what you can actually use. So I'm just going to hold that one with my tweezers, and I know that my square has got the corner and 2 scallops, the corner and 2 scallops. So this bit here is my center mark. So if I hold this with the tweezers in the center there, I know that that's halfway. And what I want to do is get this halfway on here. So I'm looking at the width of the washi tape, which is about 3/4 of an inch, I think. And I want to center it in the washi. And then I also want to center it on the card. So because we got this in the middle, I can use that as my guide. And all I need to do is get the middle of that scallop around about the middle of the washi, and then around about the center. And all I'm going to do before I press it down is just use my ruler, and we're looking at about 1 1/4 inches and 1 1/4, yeah. And then once I'm happy with that, we can actually commit to pressing that one down. Now I haven't done a top layer for this, I've worked straight onto the blue, but what we're going to do then is fold it fastened here, and we want to put this one in exactly the same position as the one underneath it. So I'm going to use the one on the base as a guide, which means that I only need glue on the top half of here. So because this is going onto an embossed piece and it's got ink on it as well, I'm going to use this like this as a guide, and I'm going to pop some pieces of tape across here, but I'm going to add some glue as well. I want this to stay because this is going to be the piece of the card that is essentially the mechanism, the bit that holds it up. I am going to add a bit of tape, but I'm also going to put some glue on there as well, just to hold it in place and allow the glue will seep into the cardstock, so you get a really nice kind of stick. So just in between where I've put the tape as a guideline there, I'm going to add a little bit of the all-purpose glue. And then what I'm going to do is hold this with the tweezers again, and I want to keep everything closed. And then this one is going to line up. I want it to be exactly the same position as the one that's underneath, so that when it's closed, the one underneath is sort of hidden. So we'll just give that a second to grab, and that's that glue to start soaking into the cardstock underneath. And then this will be the piece that then actually starts to form the easel, so the topper on there. So what we need to do now is we need to create the stopper, otherwise it just slides and you don't get the effect. So I'm going to put that one away, and we're going to change to my embellishment glue, which is my acrylic glue. This one's just about empty, I think, but I'm hoping there's enough in there for what we need. And then I've got a selection of embellishments. So let's put our hats on first. We'll do those first and get those sorted. As I say, I have got some little foam dots on the back of these ready. And I've just inked round the edge of them with one of my, just with some residue ink that was left on one of the little daubers. I'm just going to shape them slightly, and we'll follow the same design as what we had. And this is when I realized that I was covering up a lot of the washi. So yeah, if you want to omit the washi tape on this bit, it doesn't really show that much. So we've got one, then we're going to go with the next one and just create that little trio. And these can be party hats, you know. Just because they're witches' hats, it doesn't mean that you can't have a party with them. So this one's then going to go, I'm going to tuck it underneath here and bring this one sort of around about there. And then the little one we're going to bring down the front. So these have all got scraps of the turquoise on, just a little bit darker, again bits out of the scrapbox. And then they've all got the little silver buckle on, which was part of the die set. So again, bringing in that element of silver, and then this one's going to overlap here, and we've got that little trio of hats. So this could be anything now, you know, it could be a birthday card, it could be any kind of celebration for any kind of party, depending on what your sense of humour's like, you know, it could be for any occasion. So we've got those in place, and then I've got my little tub with all the other bits in. So we're going to put, I don't have another one of this particular one. This was actually from an old set that I'd got from Crafter's Companion. So I've just pulled one out here that does say happy birthday. We're going to put that on the top. I've stamped my sentiment to go inside, wishing you the best year yet. I've now got somebody working outside as well in the rain. So we've cut a couple of little silver embellishments. I've cut some little turquoise scrolls, and then I've got a selection of flowers, and these are all out of the scraps that I'd used to cut the hats. And then I've got a little silver butterfly. So those were my selection of embellishments. So we're going to open this up now, and I'm going to work on this bottom section here, because we want this to sort of land about in the centre. So mine's actually running level with the bottom of the washi tape, so we're going to work in this area at the bottom here. So let's open that one up, and we're going to use a little bit of the embellishment glue. As I say, I'm hoping that there's I think there's enough left in here to work with. Okay, and what I'm going to do is we're going to go with the little scrolly bits, and we're just going to build up a bit of detail for the inside section. So I'm going to have one of these. I'm going to use this as my guideline. This is going to go here, and then I want to have one of these coming out of the top here, and I do have somewhere my little bit of wax paper that I can just press those down with. And then I'm going to do the same with the second one. Now these are the same die cut, so I've got one going each way, but that doesn't bother me. I'm okay with that. So I'm just using little tiny dots of my acrylic glue. And again, the reason I've swapped to this is just because it dries, it grabs quicker than the all-purpose glue. So that one's going to go on that side and give it a press down. And then I didn't want just the turquoise, I wanted to incorporate some of the silver again. So these are all from different die sets. I just had a rummage through and had a look what I'd got. You can use absolutely anything at this stage. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. You need to stick there. And then we're going to go with, oops, come back. We're going to go with one of these coming up here like this. Give that a press down, and then these will all be secured with this one that's going to go on top. And then again I'm going to do the same with the other one at the other side. And what I've done is just sort of offset them a little bit. So I've got the silver at the top and the scrolly bit at the bottom. On this side we're going to do the silver at the bottom and the scrolly bit at the top. Ooh. So pop that one on there. Give it a little press. And the reason I use the wax paper is that if there is any seepage of the glue, it doesn't stick to the wax paper. So it gives me a medium to sort of press it down. I don't get covered in glue, and it works for me. Then we're actually going to put the sentiment on, which I've rosed up on some foam again. So this is a little bit deeper. This is about 2mm foam now. You want something that's going to stand away from the card a decent amount. The bits that I used for the hats were only 1mm, but this is a little bit higher because I want that topper to actually land behind it. And then I'm just going to centre that and cover all the bits that we've just stuck in the ends there so that everything's nice and secure. And then we can just add the flowers. So again, really, really simple. All I usually do with these is just give them a quick press in the center with my ball tool. And these have just been cut out using a really simple little flower die. I do like them separate. You can layer them up, but I quite like them separate. And I am going to follow my design that I did on the other one. So I've got a large one and a smaller one at the top, and then I've got one of these at the bottom, and like so. So again, I'm going to use some dots of the acrylic glue, and we're going to tuck these just underneath here so that they don't interfere with any of the mechanism that we want to stand behind it. And again, just a little bit in the centre. There's nothing going to catch these, so it's not as if they're going to be moving about. And again, I'm going to tuck this one in here and just lay it so that I've got two on that corner, and then we're going to do the same on the bottom here. So a little bit on there, and again I'm going to tuck this one just under this corner here and press. And then that last one, and these were just scraps that were left over from cutting the little witches' hats. And then this one again is going to go just tucked under that edge there and overlap the first one. So we've got our flowers in place. Oops, who's sticking there? Not to me, thank you very much. There we go. So if I close that down again now, you can see little elements of this popping out of the side, but I'm not too worried about that. The little butterfly was just an afterthought. I'd got a die sat at the side of me, and I thought that's another way just to incorporate a little bit of silver. So we're going to pop that one on the front here, like so. And then I've got my happy birthday sentiment for this one. Again, I've just popped up on those 1mm foam dots. And we're going to put that, but as I say, it could be absolutely any occasion. So just playing around with what essentially, you know, witches' hats, we tend to think of Halloween. But, you know, have a bit of fun with your dies. They don't have to be. I love sort of thinking outside the box. I used to do this a lot when I was working for Crafters Companion. I always demonstrated what things were designed for and what they were intended for, but I always love looking at other ways that you could do that, that you could use them and incorporate them. You know, something's worth much more worth the money if you can get more than one use out of it. Now again, I've got the foam dots on here, and I have popped a little bit of the acrylic glue only so that it soaks into that card where I've put the ink. So I want to center this between here and here, and I also want to center it on the card. So again, I'm just going to have a look at that scalloped area and go for roughly the center. Make sure it's running straight, and that wet glue just gives you the ability to wiggle if need be. And we've got our sentiment on there. So I think as far as the demo's concerned, that's as far as I'm going to go with it. Now my glue's not, there we go. I thought the top was misbehaving then. And you can see there we've got that design at the ready, and then when you lift, now that we've got this one raised, this bit will just tuck behind it, and you've got that reverse easel as opposed to it folding forwards. You can see again, if I show you the shaping on the side there, when we folded it forwards, it came across here and it created that kind of triangle in the edge. And as always, the only thing that I added to it when I'd finished were some little gems. I've got some little silver ones, just clear gems, one in front, in middle of the butterfly there, and I did add some to the center of the flowers inside, and that was my design for today. So this one had a let's celebrate, the other one had a happy birthday, purely because I'd only got one of these, and that's what we've decided for today's tutorial. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope again it's given you some ideas of how, and not just Halloween, you know, sort of have a look at other, if you've got dies that were designed for other occasions, can you bring them into your everyday crafting? You know, even possibly looking at Christmas things. You know, there's certain Christmas things like a wreath, for example, that you could decorate and have anything on it. Just putting stars on it instead of baubles or holly. You know, you could put ordinary foliage on it, and you've got something that you can use all year round. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking to get that value for money out of the products that I've already got. And that's why I wanted to include this in this year's Halloween season. I know that Halloween's not everybody's bag. I know not everybody celebrates it. We don't go mad with it as an event. I talked the other day about my grandbabies going booing, and I know a lot of you replied to that. Love the idea of it, rather than sort of going trick or treating. It's just flipping it on its head again, and it's what my daughter wanted for them. And yeah, we don't decorate the house much or anything like that, but I love bringing the Halloween imagery and that gothic imagery as well into my crafting. So I do have quite a bit of Halloween product as far as craft things are concerned, and I do make little treat bags for the boys when they come to do the booing. Even though they're looking to give me something, I've always got something to give back to them because I'm Nanny, and that's how it works, you know. So yeah, that's my design using alternative ideas for currently the Halloween things. We'll try and do this periodically. I'll try and do this with other items, you know, sort of if it's designed for one thing, can we use it for something else? And that's my reverse easel card today, using those sort of turquoisey colours. So if you've enjoyed that one as a tutorial, give it a thumbs up for me. It does make a big difference to the channel. And I will be back. We've got a couple more projects left to go, I think, for this series before we get into November and then leading up to Christmas. So thanks for staying with me. If you have, I know some of you have been following the Halloween series. I appreciate that it's not everybody's thing, and I you know, I don't have a problem with that. It's something I wanted to do, and I'm hoping if you've not been following that one that you'll rejoin me when we get past the end of October. So whatever you're doing today, enjoy it, have fun, and I'll be back with another tutorial for you very soon. Bye bye now.